started now. Thank you all for coming. Real quickly, I'm just going to have Olu talk about Zoom etiquette real quick, just so we all are on the same page moving forward.
Hi, everyone. My name is Olu, and I'm a rising junior at the University of Delaware. And I'm just going to go over some quick Zoom etiquette so that this call and this virtual protest can run smoothly. So as you all may have noticed already, we've disabled the feature for you to unmute yourselves directly. So if at any point during the presentation you would like to speak, you can go ahead and use the raise hand function or utilize the chat, and some of the hosts will unmute you when deemed appropriate. Also, let's try to keep the comments in the chat respectful. The team did work very hard on this, and we are all here to educate each other and be involved in the movement. So let's just make sure this is a respectful environment. And also, if you have any specific questions throughout the presentation and don't want to disturb anyone, feel free to message any of the hosts directly, and we'll be sure to address that. Thank you. That's pretty much it.
Alrighty, so we're going to get ready to get started. Good evening, everyone. My name is Carter Vaughn, and I'm a junior at the University of Delaware. Many of you may know me from school, church, or in other ways. If there are people who don't know me on this call, I'm very glad to meet you, and I want to welcome you all to this event and express how thankful I am that you decided to tune in and support. As we mentioned before on the purpose slide of this presentation, it can be a little overwhelming to have so many resources and links available on social media these days surrounding the Black Lives Matter movement. We feel that many of us can get caught in the dangerous cycle of seeing these resources and reposting them without actually interacting with them ourselves. It's incredibly easy to say, I'll fill out that petition or read that article later. But as many have noted, the time for silence has indeed run out. If this past week's events have taught us anything, it's that more than ever, we must be intentional with our time. We must hold ourselves and others accountable for kickstarting the change that we want to see in our communities. And I would definitely say that these important protests we've witnessed all over the country and the world for that matter are doing just that. They bring awareness to a cause so that our officials have no choice but to acknowledge that there is a serious problem. However, the work cannot stop after these protests. Even though Derek Chauvin has been charged with second-degree murder for George Floyd's death and the rest of the officers have been arrested and fired from their jobs, we can't stop. Breonna Taylor's murderers still face no consequence, along with Tamir Rice's murder and countless others. We have a duty to continue the fight against these injustices and reach a world where they are unable to happen in the first place. Now that we have caught the attention of our nation's leadership, it would be a disservice to our cause to lessen pressure because we have lost steam. We have to make sure that we maintain the same energy and fully reach our goals, lest we find ourselves back in the same place. There are many steps that can be taken, and while they're not as exciting, they're just as important. These steps include being present in our communities and holding each other accountable and also educating ourselves and others. Some of the easiest ways to do these things are by signing petitions, voting in every election, and continuing to have those tough conversations with those around so we can move forward together. With this in mind, my friends and I created Connecting to Justice as a way to help keep the energy that the protests have created rolling. Within this presentation are petitions, funds to donate to, scholarly resources you can use and share with others, information on voting, and also ways to support local Black businesses, creators, and art. We hope that you find this presentation to be helpful and also use this time to contribute to the cause and listen to the voices of young people endeavoring to change the world. Thank you again for your time, and I can't wait to see what we achieve together. So this amazing presentation and the event couldn't be possible without the help of these people. This team really came together and made the presentation that you're seeing now. So the team includes Aaliyah, Alexis, Anne, Brandon, George, Grace, Hannah, Kadi, Marissa, Olu, Raven, and Rasheen. So first, we're going to be having a couple of our team members talk and give a couple of short speeches on some things that are important within the movement, including intersectionality of Black Lives Matter, lives of a better life, importance of mental health, and then finally we're going to do our presentation. So I would like Rasheen to come forward and talk about intersectionality of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Hey everyone, my name is Rasheen, and I just want to talk real briefly about intersectionality. The current discourse of America is centered around police brutality and the marginalization of Black bodies within the realm of policing. George Floyd's gruesome and intentional murder has erupted a discussion amongst Americans, Black and white, that has challenged deeply ingrained views disrupted parochial understandings of Blackness being a proxy for criminality, and has initiated a collective confrontation of the nation's history being built on white supremacy and racism. Indeed, George Floyd's death warranted the world's attention to recognize the injustices endured by Black people in America as a result of police brutality. But somehow the stories of Black women and individuals within the LGBTQ community have been silenced. In response to George Floyd's death, social media has become a conversational sphere fraught with messages that uplift and recognize Black men. Black men, we see you, we hear you, we love you, signaling that cisgender Black men are at the core of our focus, but all Black people are disproportionately impacted by police brutality. Blackness intersects with other forms of identity, sex, gender, class, etc., increasing the level of discrimination and oppression individuals endure as a result of being attached to several historically oppressed identities. This experience is the reality of Black women and LGBTQ individuals. The discussion of police violence has always been centered on Black men and replete with the erasure and silencing of the experiences of Black women and LGBTQ individuals. It's time to create conversational spaces where the experiences of Black women and LGBTQ individuals are foregrounded. We need to illuminate their experiences, underscore their distinct realities, and pursue justice for them in the same passionate and relentless ways. All Black lives matter. Breonna Taylor and Tony McDade lost their lives to police brutality, just like George Floyd. Why aren't their stories getting the same attention as George Floyd? Why do their murderers remain unscathed? Let's not forget about Tony McDade and Breonna Taylor. We can't. All Black lives matter. The term intersectionality emerged in the 1980s when, in response to a particular case, a Black woman was denied entry into the workforce. She was not allowed to work, and she recognized that something was different about her because white women were allowed to work, Black men were allowed to work, but she wasn't. But she was a woman and she was Black, so she was like, okay, something is different. So Kimberly Crenshaw got into the case, and she basically was like, she's not allowed to work here because she is experiencing discrimination because she's a woman and because she's a Black person. A couple years ago, Kimberly Crenshaw did a TED Talk on intersectionality, and she began a discussion with like an audience experiment. She asked the audience to stand if they recognize the names of Black men who were killed by due to police brutality. She mentioned Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, Freddie Gray. And majority of the audience, nearly all of them responded, yes, we recognize them. But then things took a shift when she asked them questions about Black women who were victims of police brutality and violence. She asked them about Tanisha Anderson. No one knew who she was. She asked them about Megan Hockaday. No one knew her name. She asked them about Michelle Cassell, and no one knew her name. And I think that just really, that was a clear representation of the amount of erasure that Black women receive within the discourse of police violence. And so I just want to stress the point that when we talk about Black Lives Matter, we need to include the experiences of all Black people and understand that all Black people do not have the same experience. We need to include Black women and all Black people within this conversation and not look at their situations as incidental. They are important. We all are important. We all matter. All Black people matter. And I think that that's something that we all need to deeply reconcile ourselves with. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Rashid. My name is George Class Peters Jr. I'm a sophomore sports health major. I'm rising junior, and I'm gonna read you my speech, which is entitled Lies of a Better Life. My speech starts with a portion of a poem that's etched into the Statue of Liberty. Keep ancient lands your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, the tempest-tossed to me. I will lift my lamp beside the golden door. My father believed these words. I am the son of 2 Ghanaian immigrants to the United States. My father toiled long and hard to get to America and gain his citizenship. He worked even harder to establish his family here in these United States by bringing my mother over from Ghana and finding themselves both steady employment. As their family grew to include 4 beautiful children, they decided once again to sacrifice their comfort zones and move their family from New York to Delaware. They wanted to give their kids a better life yet still. Imagine telling my father that the words on that statue are a lie. Imagine explaining that my life, my brothers, my cousins, my sisters, my aunts, my uncles may not be better off here. The better life that he worked so hard for will more than likely involve me being harassed, profiled, beaten, or even killed by a man wearing a badge that holds the flag that I have pledged allegiance to since the day I could speak. The duality in the criminal justice system and law enforcement agencies is evidenced enough by the way killer cops walk free, and Black men are most likely to spend years upon years in a cell, no matter what the crime. I will close with this thought. Someone at a protest I was at recently said, "Racism is America's birth defect. It was born with it, and it will stay with her forever. All she can do is try to treat it." The Statue of Liberty seems to know that people need to breathe free, yet we still have the nation's knees on our necks after some 400 years of fighting. We have to grow, and we have to do better. Some of us want to be pacifist and peaceful, but we're being forced to fight for our lives. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cotty Jackson. I am a junior at the University of Delaware. Today, I'm just going to touch a little bit on the importance of mental health in our community during this time and going forward. First and foremost, mental health is health, and taking care of self is the new Black. I want to make a point that I matter, you matter, and we all matter. So during this time, I encourage everyone to work on yourself while we work on the world. Mental health is health, and for years there has been a disconnect between the two within our community. It is not a destination, but rather a process. During this time, a lot is circulating in the media, and media-enforced trauma is real. We encourage everyone to find different outlets that will connect you to a multitude of resources, which will enable positive reflection. Allow yourself to digest what you may experience, allow yourself to feel the different emotions, but most importantly, allow yourself to heal. This is a movement in history, not a moment. Give yourself the same amount of time, attention, and care that you are giving this fight. I matter, you matter, we matter. And although enough is enough, just remember that you are enough. We found a link of resources that Carter is gonna put up. You can find these different places. We found them on Instagram. You can go to their social media platforms or search them up as well. They are Dive In Well, Sister Afra, Therapy for Black Girls, Heal House, Inclusive Therapists, Ethel's Club, and the NAP Ministry. Thank you.
So thank you, Cotty. We're actually going to begin with a spoken word that's entitled Emmett that we all felt that was very relevant to what we're going to be talking about for the rest of the presentation. So please enjoy this.
I heard he was 14.
Heard he wasn't from around here.
Heard he had eyes like mine.
Heard he was known for being mischievous.
He was mentioned quite a bit in the paper.
You ever seen this boy before?
We ever see him around?
Heard he was visiting family. I wish I could put a face to that name.
Those black boys do tend to get themselves into trouble.
We do whatever we can to stay out of trouble.
Well, his mama should have warned him.
Getting lost after sundown is a death sentence.
We won't rise again the next day.
They say he was found weighted in water.
Body wrinkled and face swollen.
The river doesn't look as blue.
Boys like us are always thought of as pollution.
More color in the
A
currents.
body of water became little. They say he settled to the surface like erosion.
Don't we always look best as fossils, like dead fish?
What was it that you did?
His look was probably arrogant, probably instilled itself between porcelain skin and a dress scene.
Did he become a target for a wandering eye, or wandering too far?
Didn't his mama warn him about looking the wrong direction?
About looking too confidently in our direction, that he should learn to control his glance.
That the only thing his eyes should have flirted with
was the ground he'd be buried in.
Was his whistle too comfortable in this lethal wind?
Didn't he know how many things swaying it that look just like him.
That look just like us. Mississippi is an abusive mother to black children.
Engaged to a Jim Crow kind of man.
Our hands don't hesitate to suffocate brown skin.
Choked out the last of his small voice. Tied him up in the back of a pickup truck.
Like he was tired of waiting to be slaughtered.
Do you think they drove down our road?
Do you think we're destined to go down this
The
road?
reports say they gouged his eye out.
Like a pitchfork flying at a haystack.
Cocked their shotgun to his head.
While foaming at the mouth.
As his brain tissue stained the Indian scarlet. Beat his face till his whistle became a faint tune of torture. Beat his face till
Even God couldn't recognize his child.
they beat his face till
Their knuckles numbed against the skull.
his color smeared the southern soil.
His rigor mortis like vomit.
Triggering a potent kind of gag reflex. Black boys need to get used to that kind of smell.
It's not as if we can get away from it. We're always living with it.
We're always dealing with it. Melanin makes such a mess.
Blood stains are too difficult to clean. They pushed the limit of our pigment, wrapped the cotton gin around his neck.
They made him an anchor
to remind us of the weight we carry.
The black burden has always been so heavy. I hope he learned his lesson.
I hope this won't be our fate.
It'd be foolish to make the same mistake twice, so be a lasting silence. Won't he?
We know silence all too well, don't we? Don't we? Look how quiet white folks get when a black boy is hushed. The sins of white men know too many colored graves. Our mothers crying over hollow caskets. Emmett won't be the last name to settle on our tongues like sediment. Emmett won't be the last name to dissolve from our mouths. God has a stutter. We won't let your death go unsung.
Black boy swinging in the dead of night.
You were 14. You had eyes like mine. I was left for the morning dirt beneath tombstones. More than residue. We know he won't be the last of us. Just one of many. A soldier of an army that knows no surrender. We will fight Emmett till we can rise again the next day.
So before we began, we just wanted to make sure that it was clear what we're meaning when we say Black Lives Matter, because there is a little bit of a disagreement on the internet what this actually means. So when we say that Black Lives Matter, we mean that there is a serious race problem in this country and that Black Americans are still being oppressed to this day. In fact, Black Americans or Black people in the world are facing racism all around the country and the world. This country needs to acknowledge that Black people are being discriminated against in many aspects of everyday life. And acknowledging this racism towards Black people is the first step towards fixing it. What we don't mean when we say Black Lives Matter is that any other life is less important than a Black life, or that any other struggle is insignificant. And we also don't mean that racism is unimportant when it happens to any other race.
Knowing our why. So we just want to make sure that we clarify exactly why we've brought you all here today to peacefully protest virtually and to learn from our experiences. With all that's gone on recently, we see the need to centralize the information and provide real actionable resources to the members of our community and to those beyond that just wanted to come and absorb the information we were giving out to. We want to take proper steps forward toward ending the injustices that plague Black America. We want to take action, and that can only happen through learning and growth. And we want to do it here with you guys. This is not only a social media trend, but it's intentional change, and it needed to happen for a very long time. So we just want to emphasize that Black Lives Matter, and we want justice for all.
So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this case because it happened so recently, but we're just going to go over it for anybody who's not familiar. On May 25th, Minneapolis police officers arrested George Floyd, who was a 46-year-old man whom a deli employee called 911 on and accused him for having bought cigarettes with a counterfeit $20 bill. 17 minutes after the first squad car arrived at the scene, Mr. Floyd was murdered by an officer who intentionally put his knee on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And if any of you have seen the horrible video, I think one of the things that made it pretty disturbing for most viewing was that Mr. Floyd could be heard begging for his life and telling the officer that he couldn't breathe, as well as the other bystanders around who begged the officer to take his knee off his neck. So we just have some petitions that are available on the slide and also donations. You can donate to Mr. Floyd's family as well as Reclaim the Block.
Hi everyone, I'm Alexis Cope and I'm a rising junior at the University of Delaware. Our next case is Ahmaud Arbery. He was just a 25-year-old Black man, and while taking a run close to home, Ahmaud was murdered in broad daylight by his white residents. It took months later for these men to be arrested and charged with his murder, including the person filming the murder. The arrest would not have occurred if not for many articles published, as well as the use of social media. Below, you can find a few petitions you can sign that relate to Ahmaud's case, as well as laws in the state of Georgia. You could also continue to support by calling the phone numbers presented here, or you can donate to the GoFundMe through the link provided, as he gets the justice he deserves.
Hello, I'm Raven Roberts. I'm a rising senior at the University of Delaware, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor was a 26-year-old EMT who was shot and killed by Louisville Metro Police on March 13th during a late-night raid on her home while executing a search warrant. Unfortunately, Breonna's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, was also present but was asleep during the time. The police were in search of another suspect and were in the wrong house. Below, there are 4 petitions that are going to be used to make sure Breonna receives justice and so that her murderers are charged for the crime they committed. There's also a GoFundMe link down below where you can donate to Breonna and her family. And on this page, this is just a little bit of information. This just gives you information on how you can get your voice heard. You can call these numbers listed below so that you make sure Breonna receives justice and so that the officers who committed this crime are charged. And you can also get your voice heard through social media as well.
Hello, everybody. My name is Marissa, and I'm a rising junior here at the University of Delaware. I'm just going to be talking a little bit about David McKeedy. So he was a 53-year-old businessman who was shot and killed by Louisville Metro Police and National Guard on June 1st. He was selling his barbecue at his barbecue stand, and this was, they were called to this spot because there was like an unruly gathering of people, so the police came to disperse that. There was fire that was exchanged between the 2 parties, 3 parties actually, and he was shot and killed. His niece was also shot in this altercation. The police didn't have their body cams on during the event, and that's something that has raised suspicion throughout the police force. They have been fired, and to make things a little bit more painful, he used to give free food to police officers in the area, so he was a very caring man. He's loved by his community. So the 2 petitions below are just to hold the officers accountable. And then at the bottom, there's a fund for funeral expenses, legal expenses, and for a memorial fund.
So we were going to be having someone else going to be covering this slide, but I'll just cover it real quick. This is James Scurlock. He was a 22-year-old Black man who was shot by a white supremacist at one of the protests that happened last week. It was near a bar, and he was shot in Omaha, Nebraska. No charges were brought against the bar owner, as it was described as self-defense, when in reality, some videos have shown that that is not the case. So these petitions are just for James Scurlock to get the justice that he deserves and let the grand jury decide rather than Don Klein.
Hello again, it's Marissa. The Sandra Bland case is something that a lot of people are familiar with. It happened back in 2015 and gained a lot of momentum in the Black Lives Matter movement. So she was pulled over in 2015 for failing to signal a lane change. She was taken out of her car and detained, arrested, brought to jail. After she was taken into custody, she was found dead 3 days later, hanging in her jail cell, and it was determined a suicide. So the only charge that came out of this case was with the officer, Encinia was charged with perjury, but that charge was waived on a deal that he would discontinue his work in law enforcement. So in 2019, there was new cell phone footage that was released, and so people are now calling for the case to be reopened. As Rasheen mentioned, this is a case that has a lot of intersectionality, and it brought a lot of awareness to the things that Black women face in regards to police brutality. So feel free to check out these petitions below, and thank you.
This is the case of Julius Jones. a former student of the University of Oklahoma. He was sentenced to the death penalty for allegedly killing a man in his driveway in 2002. He was wrongfully convicted, and there's a lot of convincing evidence proving that. His family, along with a team of lawyers, have been attempting to eliminate his charges, but he remains on death row. After a period of silence, there was a resurgence in national and global attention on Julius's case due to the documentary called The Last Defense. More resources have been invested in his case, but the quest for justice continues. Here's a petition for Julius, and there's also a GoFundMe link. And if I can digress for a little bit, Joe Biden is one of the architects of the 1994 crime bill, and that bill has left so many Black men disproportionately conveyed into the prison system and put on death row. So as we near the election, and he's one of the candidates, I feel like we need to address that. And yeah, because yeah.
These are just some other petitions to consider. For the sake of time, we can't include all of them. And some of them are actually internationally based. For example, Justice for Belly Mujinga, who was an employee at London Victoria Station, and she was actually spat on by a customer who knew that they had coronavirus, and as a result, Belly died from contracting this. So that petition is really kind of not for prosecuting the person who spat on her, but more so for protecting people who are in Belly's profession and making sure those employees are protected in the future.
Hello, everyone. It's Kadi again. I'm just going to read this quote. "It is certain in any case that ignorance allied with power is the most ferocious enemy justice can have." James Baldwin. So with that being said, I want to make a point that although we're fighting police brutality currently at this moment, police brutality is just one factor of systematic racism. Other systems need attention too. So the prison industrial complex, we know that African Americans are twice as more likely to get incarcerated compared to our counterparts. In the education system, based on where you live, the resources that you have access to are limited, and we need to address those issues as well. Within the housing industry, when some African Americans go to apply for loans or get other qualifications to get a house, they are denied based on their skin color. In public health, there are many issues there. There are a multitude of issues, and Black women specifically die at a higher rate compared to white women when delivering babies. And when it comes to employment, we face discrimination based on skin color, based on hairstyles. We're told that our natural hair, whether we wear dreads, kinky hair, curly hair, they are considered unprofessional. So if you don't find your passion line with police brutality, there are other systems that you can contribute to help the cause. And I encourage you to find your cause, because although police brutality is important, there are other systems that we need to break as well.
We also wanted to highlight some resources for those of you guys who want to be allies to the cause, but don't really know where to start your education. I know we give you a lot of resources, but the systemic racism just goes so much farther than the police brutality, like Kadi just mentioned. It's so many different factors. So to highlight those factors, there's amazing pieces of media and literature that are available to you all at the touch of a button now that everything's so technologically advanced. You don't have to reach out to African Americans or Black people and ask them specifically for their experience when so many people have been paid to share their experiences. So these are our list that we curated. We've seen most of these documentaries or movies, and we've seen or read a lot of these books, podcasts, and such. And they're all really helpful in shaping the idea of getting a strong foundation of what systemic racism really is in the United States.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aaliyah Wade, and I'm a rising junior here at the University of Delaware. And so now I'll be talking about systemic racism. As the slide says, one of the first steps that we can all make is educating ourselves on the problem. And so we have a screenshot of a video that we took from YouTube from ACT TV, which is called Systemic Racism Explained. And in that video, it talks about two friends named Jamal, a young Black boy from a poor neighborhood, and Kevin, a young white boy from a wealthy neighborhood. And it just shows the disproportions of what their opportunities are. And so even though the two boys live a few streets apart, they live two completely different lives because of the limitations in place, such as school district funding, education, redlining, implicit biases, wealth, representation, and incarceration. And so the video continues to break down the boys' family backgrounds, from loans, owning houses, college graduations, from their grandparents and parents, and the previous limitations stated. And if you have not seen this video, we do recommend it, and we have the link in the PowerPoint.
So the next step is calling for action, and that's one thing we're going to talk about.
So going forward, what we decided part of the plan can be, we want to start with education as our basis, whether that's educating yourself or others, but in order to educate others, you have to educate yourself. So start having these difficult conversations in your communities, in your workplaces. I know it's going to be uncomfortable, but we can no longer sit in our own discomfort because of others. Then we want to spread awareness. Spreading awareness goes beyond social media. That is, you can sign petitions, you can donate, you can do a multitude of things wherever you feel like you best, I don't know, wherever best fits you. And finally, we want to form alliances with people that are outside of the Black and Brown communities. We want to form alliances with people that just don't match who we are, because that creates solidarity, and that will go a longer way.
Hello, so my name is Anne, and I'll be talking about the importance of voting. As a citizen, it is your right to vote. Voting is an important part of enacting change because it allows you to directly interact with the government and have your voice be heard. Congressman and civil rights leader John Lewis has said that the vote is the most powerful nonviolent tool that we have in a democratic society. We must not allow the power of the vote to be neutralized, and we must never go back. So on this page, you'll find information about upcoming registration deadlines and elections in Delaware. If you're not a Delaware resident, there's a link to find out about voting in your state. And just remember that every vote counts and your voice needs to be heard.
All right, so as we all know, there are many ways to support the Black Lives Matter movement financially, but unfortunately, we all know that we are in some very hard times with this worldwide pandemic and the COVID-19 virus. So not all of us are able to contribute as much as we would to financially for the movement. But due to YouTube's algorithm, there are ways that you can support the movement financially without actually donating money. So with YouTube's algorithm, certain videos can generate revenue through advertisements, and a few YouTube creators have started these videos so that the proceeds for those will go towards the Black Lives Matter movement and go towards the victims of the police brutality and the discrimination that we are facing now as a country. And there are 3 links here. You can feel free to stream those in the background while you're doing your chores, you're at the house, and yeah, just support the movement.
So we all believe that supporting Black businesses is very important. Here you can find just a short list of local Black creators and small businesses. Please support these young and talented artists and entrepreneurs in any way you can, whether it's purchasing their services or just following their accounts. You can easily access their pages and sites by clicking their names, which will lead you to their hyperlinks.
Along with the other Black businesses that we've listed particular type of groups that have catered to or are Black businesses that we can help with. So on the services page, we have services ranging from salons to financial investments and advising. On our shopping one, we have organizations that sell clothes, jewelry, tea, soaps, and footwear. Our food page has all of your newest eateries around Delaware. And finally, we have our And More page that has artistic, educational, financial, and physical opportunities to indulge in.
And many of you might feel exhausted from all the protests and posting on social media, but this is to show you that your efforts are not useless, that they're actually making change. There's millions of dollars raised for the families of victims of police brutality. All 4 officers involved in the George Floyd case have been charged. Companies are investing millions into the Black community. Fighting Mujinga's case is being reviewed. Minneapolis police have banned the use of chokeholds. Breonna's law was passed in Louisville, and it regulates no-knock warrants. Robert E. Lee statue is taken out in Virginia, and LAPD cuts the police budget by $130 million, and that money is being used to go back into communities of color. And the United States Marine Corps has banned all public displays of the Confederate flag.
So at this time, we just wanted to remind you as well, when there's a lot of stuff going on with the protests and a lot of different things circulating the news, we just want to remind you that you should be getting your news from a variety of different sources so you can start to make your own educated decisions, and also taking that extra step to kind of read those articles and watch those movies and books so you can really make your own opinion on something like this.
And we just want to say thank you guys so much for joining us today. At this time, we want to open up the floor for any questions or additional comments on the subject. Anything you guys want to say?
Feel free to use the raise your hand icon in order to be selected so we can unmute you. Or if you have something you want to say in the chat that you'd like us to relay, that also works as well.
I just want to highlight in the chat, there's been a lot of positive affirmation for us doing the work we did. And I know as a group, we really appreciate you guys giving us praise, but we appreciate even more that you guys take the opportunity to dive into the links that we provided. It was a labor of love to create this presentation. So please really use those links, use the resources that we've given you.
And if are we seeing anyone who would like to say anything or?
So far, okay, we do have Janine that wants to speak. I'll go ahead and unmute you. You're unmuted, Janine. You can go ahead and speak.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Janine Denovaj. I'm a professor at UD. I just wanted to say thank you for the hard work that you've put into this presentation at the end of what has been an incredibly difficult, trying week, on the tail end of a ongoing, very trying pandemic. I think that this displayed a lot of strength, a lot of grace, a lot of what we want to see in the UD community. And I also just want to give a shout out to the folks who did the original petition and the letter. I don't know that if they're all here. I know George is. And so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else, Olu and Kadi, that you're seeing that would like to speak? Or?
Yep. Up next we have. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm unmuting Mr. Vaughn so he can speak. Olu, can you try, please? Oh, you're unmuted. You can speak now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm Michael Vaughn. I'm interim vice provost for diversity and inclusion here on the campus. And I just want to say, in addition to the comment I made in the chat, that I'm just very proud of the students and others who put this work together. I think when you think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, what you've seen tonight, those on the Zoom call, this is diversity, equity, and inclusion at work. This is why we need a diverse community, because we can only learn when we learn from each other. And so the students who put this together have a unique understanding about this situation, perhaps what's happening in our nation and around our world. And so when they bring something forward like this, that's a learning opportunity, it really does help us to grow. And sometimes we feel like we're inadequate and we are silent because we don't understand what's going on. We don't know what to say or how to say it. I've heard colleagues say that all over the university, and also in people I deal with all across the nation. They don't know what to say. But if we work together, as the students have encouraged us to do tonight, and are willing to learn something different and to experience something from someone else's perspective, we can actually grow. And before we know it, we're going to be allies. We're going to be authentic about the way we approach these situations. So I just want to say again that as students, this is exactly why you're here. So I just applaud your efforts this evening and thank you for all you're doing to help us grow and continue to be more than we are right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vaughn.
All right, up next, I'm muting Jessica Mariraka.
That was very well done. I really appreciate you taking your time to do this. Can we share these slides?
Yes, we did have the links at the beginning, but I can resend those in the chat so you'll be able to view it and the links will all be able to work.
Okay, thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.
Courtney, did you still have something to say too?
Hello?
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, this was beautifully organized. You guys did an amazing job. Just to begin there. Additionally, I wanted to ask, of course, since you guys have the platform and you're able to share, this question comes up often, but because of the organization of this presentation, you guys actually have the opportunity to share your own experiences or your own ideas. And so to get to my question, in the past, we've seen Black people able to organize immediately following the traumas or tragedies that our people face. Being that you guys are rising juniors and you do have another year on our beautiful University of Delaware's campus, how can we intend to organize our organizations such as those that are in and beyond the BLC?
I just want to make sure I understand your question. So you're just saying, how can we as a university community continue to put on events like this and stay organized, or? I just want to clarify on that.
Yeah, so like some ideas that you guys have as a collective or as individuals to, reorganize or stay organized even as we transition into the fall semester that's coming up.
Sure, I can start off with that. And just for those who don't know, the BLC actually stands for the Black Leadership Council. It's kind of a caucus of multicultural organizations that exist within the university setting. So that's what Courtney was referring to. I think kind of continuing to have these conversations and educate each other, but I think on a more practical note, maybe having like a forum next time to make it a little bit easier for the audience to kind of input so we can have that discourse and kind of find best courses of action. I don't know if anyone else on the team would like to weigh in on that as well.
Yeah, I do. So hi, I'm Marissa. For those of you that don't know me, I am currently the first vice president of our Black Student Union. And this is kind of like a shameless plug for BSU. We as an organization are here to give voices to all students at UD that feel as if they should be heard, specifically Black students. And so some things that we're working on, we're currently in contact with several parts of the administration, UDPD, student life, enrollment, like all of it. And so what BSU is going to try and do in this upcoming year and the years moving forward is to provide more opportunities for students to bring their problems to us. And so with that being said, if you have something that you want us to acknowledge, feel free to reach out to us. Our Instagram, BSU_UDEL. You can reach out to me specifically. I'll leave my email in the chat box, but I know that there are several organizations here for Black students. So don't hesitate to reach out if there's something that you want heard.
Did anyone else on the, okay, sorry, go on.
Thank you, Marissa. So currently there's no one else that has raised their hand, but just a gentle reminder, if you'd like to share your experiences, comment on our presentation, ask any questions. There are some University of Delaware staff on this call. So, okay, it seems like we have Dr. Jackie Washington. I'll go ahead and unmute you in a second. All right, you should be unmuted, Dr. Jackie.
Good evening, can you hear me? Great.
Yes.
First, I'd like to say I can't even express the amount of pride and how proud I am of each and every one of you for organizing this peaceful virtual protest and awareness education platform. I'd like to thank all of those who have decided to come out and support each and every one of you. You are our leaders of today and tomorrow. With that being said, I'd like to echo what Dr. Vaughn had mentioned in terms of this is diversity at its best. And I just want to add that I am very much looking forward to additional follow-up events as it relates to your leadership, and how we will continue to follow up and follow through on the current events at hand, but also the issues that are happening within our state and local government, so that we can continue to be engaged. I want to encourage that we don't jump on the bandwagon of, this is what's happening now, and then as soon as COVID as soon as we get through that, life is as it was. Our lives are forever changed. And so I just want to encourage you to continue to educate, to do your research, to engage us, and to implore us and challenge us to continue doing the work that needs to be done. So I'm looking forward to the next event. As a UD alum.
Thank you so much. Olu, is there anyone else you're seeing, or, oh, we have a question in the chat if someone wants to read that aloud. Let's see.
It looks like President Asanas asked to speak next, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute him.
Sure.
George and Carter and Alexis and everybody else who has been so passionate in relaying your perspectives. We hear your voices. I'm moved with those, and I really want to appreciate everybody here, and deeply from my heart express to all of you how much this forum means to me personally. I've said many times that inclusive excellence is important to me and to the university. I can tell you that when George was talking about the dream that his father had as an immigrant, both myself and my wife were here, we nearly cried, because we had the exact same experience. This is why we came to this country. These are the ideals we were raised with. And, we came here to make a difference. Every human being matters to us. We've learned we were raised to deal with everybody with civility and respect. This is just not us, and we know our community can do better. We want to work with all of you to make it better. It's a starting point, and I truly want to work with you. You can count me and my wife as allies. I don't want to say anything else because this is your forum. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President Asanas. I see we're getting a lot of comments and questions in the chat. For some reason, I can't read them all right now. So if one of the team members just wants to read those aloud, if they see one that is addressing.
Yep. I think Marissa's going to go ahead and answer a question that was asked by Jennifer Joe in the chat.
Yeah, so Jennifer asked about the forum that has been created for students to express any acts of discrimination or racism that they experience on campus. And as for the concrete steps, no one really on the board that created this really has the answers, but I do know that SGA, NAACP, and BSU are currently in communication with university officials to have those steps outlined so we can eventually release those to people. So that was kind of the best answer I can give at that moment. I also got another question from Kerline. Sorry if I said that wrong. But we do have a BSU here on campus. We also have a organization for Black graduates and Black alumnus. So I'm gonna try and find that name and link it down below, just so everybody knows that is a resource. They're the ones that put on homecoming, and they do other things for graduate students and such. So that's my little tidbit. I hope that helps. Thank you, Olu.
Thank you. I think I saw there was a Sunny Rosen that had a question. Is that still true? If so, I'll go ahead and unmute you.
Yeah, sorry. I saw Jennifer's question and I just thought it had been lost. So I just wanted to point out that she had asked something. So nothing for me, but great job, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I see there's a
Malcolm asked if there will be more of these online presentations. We actually didn't think about that yet, but we could actually put more thought into it and seeing how we can be more interactive with these going forward if that's something people are interested in. And maybe we can connect with different departments or faculty and staff going forward as well.
And also, my email is actually linked at the bottom of this flyer. So if you have any suggestions that you haven't thought of while we're in this meeting, feel free to shoot me an email and I'll relate with the rest of the team because that is something we definitely would be willing to consider. So thank you for that question, Malcolm.
There's a question by Danielle D. She wrote, has there been any movements made to orchestrate not only virtual support, but virtual demonstrations?
Just for clarifying, are you talking about like more of like a virtual protest? Like, I'm not quite sure what you mean.
There is another question that was asked by Brittany as we're waiting for Danielle to clarify.
Hello.
Oh, there we go.
Hi. I'll put the video back on. Hi. So I'm actually, I'm in Japan. I'm in Osaka, Japan. And my mom is a UD professor or was a UD professor. And so that's how I got linked to this. We had just 2 days ago had a protest here in Osaka, but it was a physical one. So we actually had a procession that was orchestrated, but I know that America's climate is a little bit different. And so I guess there's two sort of sides to it. In the one tier of, you know, being an American, but based in a different country, wanting to show solidarity and support, but also bring to light that these sorts of issues are also happening abroad. And also on the more domestic side for you guys who may not be at liberty to move around as much as Japan is right now, that I guess what I was in terms of like doing like demonstrations or even making like educational materials, doing things virtually. So doing Instagram lives as a group, not as individuals, but as groups, you know, finding someone or any sort of organization with a platform to sort of bring these things to light. I guess from, as a Delawarean, has there been any movement on that? I saw in Wilmington that there was, that people had actually like gathered and had protested, but just wondering like for people who, you know, are staying in still, if there, you know, has been any thought, even maybe not even any organization or movement per se, but has that been considered as an option to do either like live videos or some people do like charity work using platforms like Twitch and stuff for people to donate, like viewers to donate and such, and proceeds go to you know, whatever, you know, charity organization that you choose. So just wondering if something like that has crossed people's minds, if that's something that you guys were thinking of, or if you'd be interested in doing that if you haven't.
We haven't talked about that, but I actually really like those ideas that you brought forward. So that would definitely be something we would talk about as a team if we were to decide to do like another event. So thank you for those suggestions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and sorry. Yeah, and that's pretty much why we put on this event too, if I can speak for Carter for that. Basically because that we all know that we all want to participate and be there physically protesting, but unfortunately for some of us, that's not possible. So in a sense, this is kind of a virtual protest because we've put together resources that we can all contribute to, whether financially or just show our support by signing petitions, making phone calls, sending emails, and all those links and resources are in the PowerPoint presentation, so that after this call, you all can go ahead and share that and continue the movement. But the next question we have here is from Caitlin Cassidy. They asked, as a white student, on campus, are there any organizations that I can join to help forward the movement / work as an ally?
I don't know if anyone else wants to take that one, or Marissa.
Yeah, I can offer some insight on this. And it's kind of going to go away from the question, but it's going to answer the question at the same time. So as a white student on this campus, I think it's important when we talk about using your privilege. So if you are in organizations already, and if you are already in leadership spaces, just using your platform to uplift Black voices and voices from people that might not have the same opportunities. And what this looks like is like words. What this looks like is, say you're having interviews for like a new board member. And so you see that like all of the applicants are white. So just taking a look at your organization and targeting or like having actions that would specifically target people that you're not already getting, trying to boost those or that representation on your board that you're already on. And so also just as BSU, my lane, anybody that attends our events is like a member of BSU. We speak for the community, and that does include allies. And so I think just uplifting Black voices, uplifting LGBTQIA+ voices, uplifting disabled voices, it's important to have intersectionality in our allyship, as Rasheen explained. And so as a white student on this campus, I think just amplifying the voices that are already here and just taking strides in your own organizations in the space that you occupy to make them more equitable, more achievable, and more open to people from different backgrounds. Hope that answered the question. Yes.
And I just want to cut in real quick. Mr. Jim Tweedy reached out to me in the private chat. We're actually going to be having a meeting with a few RAs tomorrow, and he'd like me to let anyone know if you have any aspirations or hopes for residence life. As it is, we're trying to make it a more inclusive environment. If you'd like to suggest any feedback that you'd like us to take to the meeting, he would be really appreciative, and we would all be really appreciative.
Just to echo Courtney as well, we also do have a University of Delaware chapter of NAACP, and where we do similar things as BSU, and we fight for the community, we advocate for the community, not only on University of Delaware's campus, but also in the greater Newark community. So if you'd like to get involved with that, you can also email Carter. Her email's at the bottom of the flyer, and she can definitely put you in contact with those people. And there are people of all races in these organizations. So you don't have to feel like if you're not white, you can't join an organization on campus because it's full of Black people. That's the point of these conversations, to show that there is inclusivity. And yeah. I see a question here from Nancy Hicks. I don't have the answer, but if anyone else does. She wrote, is there any thought about organizing or attending the anniversary march in DC in August that I think Al Sharpton is organizing? Does anyone know anything about that?
I can just, as a team, we haven't really talked about that. We kind of haven't really gotten us any further than this event. We just kind of wanted to get this together. But again, like many of the suggestions, we would definitely be open to talking about that. And if we were to decide to try and organize something as a group, we would try to reach out to everybody who was on the call and everything and kind of advertise that, so we would let you know. But thank you for that suggestion. Is there anyone else raising their hands, Olu?
No one else is using the raise hand function. If you're having trouble like locating that, you just click on the participants list at the bottom of your screen, and then there should be a icon to raise your hand. Or you can also ask more questions in the chat like Brittany just did. They wrote, could you all touch on how student organizations are working to center those that are the most marginalized within this fight for justice? Trans folks, LGBT folks, disabled folks, etc. If any university staff would also like to answer any of these questions, feel free to let us know in the chat as well.
Like Rasheen spoke about earlier, it's also about the intersectionality. So step one is educating yourself as to how this is such a deeply impactful area of intersectionality, when you do have multiple minorities interacting within yourself, it can be an internal battle sometimes, and then it's even harder when that battle becomes exemplified externally, like Rasheen so eloquently put. So it's important for us to educate ourselves on these matters and to continue to work toward these things. And like Marissa said, if you are wanting to be an ally in these matters, if you are somebody on a board of an organization or somebody that's looking to be impactful, make sure that you are taking these things into mind, that there are individuals with these multiple layers of minority upon themselves and how you can best support them.
Yes, and I also think that individuals who have intersectional identities also need to be put in positions of power, because I think that leadership can reflect the overall, like, how people are valued within an organization. So thanks, George, for that.
Yeah, and there also are organizations like, I believe Lavender is one of is a huge programming board on University of Delaware's campus, and they do cater towards that community and advocate for that group of people who are marginalized, as well as, like my colleagues mentioned, there are people in our Black community who do relate to intersectionality. So honestly, joining any organization on campus, we all should be fighting for the same thing. I see Courtney has just mentioned Project Unify that works with disabled people, and again, Lavender for LGBTQ+. And I do see a raised hand here from.
This is also going to be the last question as well. So if anyone else has one, just type it in the chat and we will try to address it with you privately. Thank you. But go ahead, Daniel.
Oh, sure. I just had one last thing is, do you guys have like not a guest list, but will you have like a registry for people who have participated in this presentation who want to do more or want to link up afterwards, that sort of thing, like a Google Doc or a link for a Google Doc for people to visit after this to just like put down their name and contact information?
That is a great question, and I will make one really quick, or actually, because that's going to take too much time.
So I can make a note of people who like drop their emails and information in the chat, like saying you want to contact the staffer, and if there's additional people, Carter will handle that.
So that's perfect. So yeah, can you guys put your information in there if you'd like to stay in touch, and we'll reach out.
Sure.
Again, we'd like to thank everyone who came out and supported us. This was something we were really excited to share with the community, and we're glad that so many people came and were willing to listen and had their hearts open and were receptive to the education and the information we were trying to relay. And thank you so much for the support and the feedback that you gave us at the end. It was very helpful. And I'm actually really excited to see if we do anything else in the future, and we will definitely let you all know. So I see a lot of people putting their information in, so continue to do that. And other than that, we hope you all have a great night. Thank you. And if anyone doesn't have the link, I can put that in there again real quick, or